was going to say a few words first before you. Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to my IG Live. Normally that begins at 1 p.m. Pacific time, but today we have 3 guests, and starting now. We're going to have 3 particular guests. We're going to have Benjamin Crump, the great attorney that's really been in the forefront of working with families whose children were abused or killed by law enforcement. And he's really ahead of the pack in terms of civil rights. We're going to deal with, we're going to talk with Ryan Bathé, the great actor and mother as well. And we're going to talk with the Reverend Kevin Ross out of Sacramento. This particular, we preempted our other interview with Jerry Powell because of the state of affairs that America is going through right now. So we're going to go to Benjamin Crump right now. We're going to invite him at this moment. So let your friends know that we're starting early and to come on board. Be patient. We're trying to get Benjamin Crump right this moment. Hold on one moment. Hold on one moment. We're trying to get him in the queue. Now, obviously, we're dealing with the moment in which most of the world saw the public murder of an unarmed black man that was handcuffed and on the ground. And it's created a tremendous amount of energy through not only the United States, but throughout the entire world. So we want to talk about that today. I wonder if he's put himself in the queue.
Can you X out it?
And so we're going to get with him in just a moment.
He's home with the medical. He's coming on in a moment.
He's coming on in a moment. He's a very busy man. He's the individual that's going to be going with the family shortly, with the body of the man that was murdered. So he's very close to this particular case. And so, just hold on a second. And as I said, after that, we're going to talk to Ryan Bathé. You may know her as a wonderful actor, mother of 2 children. She's married to Sterling Brown as well. And Reverend Kevin Ross, who's the spiritual director of the Unity Spiritual Community in Sacramento. So we're going to go from attorney Benjamin Crump, Ryan Bathé, Reverend Kevin, and get perspective on this healing in America that America is calling for right now. America is calling for a spiritual healing. We need to obviously shift the narrative of individuals that are black or brown or poor being inferior to other beings and how we're treated differently. And this is our time for all of us to rise up articulate a new vision and a new narrative, and begin to do what we can do individually to walk in the direction of being an architect of a society that honors the dignity and the uniqueness of every being on the planet. To really rise, to catch that vision, to articulate it, and to live it according to what our giftedness is. Everyone can't do everything, but everyone can do something. And so begin to just consider that for a moment as Benjamin Crump is readying himself to be a part of our dialogue. And you have a moment, share this with your friends and family. Share this with individuals on your IG so that they know time has changed and we're going live now. So the title of our moment today is America is actually crying for spiritual healing. And that's true. And there are different levels of spiritual healing, from the universal all the way down to the very practical. And obviously with the murder of Ahmaud, the man that was jogging and was hunted down and killed by a white supremacist, and the murder by a law enforcement individual that was to protect and to serve an individual, there's some healing that needs to happen. And right now, the natural reaction is for many people to strike out, not just with protests, but with violence to a degree. But what do we do after that? What do we build after that? You see, and this is what we're calling for, is a healing of the soul of America. And so I think we're all processing what we have seen, the wanton murder of a man in which individuals were screaming from the sidelines, get your knee off his neck. One officer was keeping people distant, and people were saying he can't breathe, you're killing him, and the officer never moved. And even the individual that was ultimately murdered was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, everything is in pain. And then you saw, if you haven't seen it already, you'll see, the body went limp and he was pronounced dead on arrival. So obviously, as an African-American man, we have a DNA memory of public lynching when black men it was legal to lynch them publicly. And so many people are having the scar tissue, the memory of that dynamic being seared into our soul again. But please understand this. This is not a black issue. Oppression in America and bigotry or racism or the abuse of power by law enforcement is not an African-American issue. It's all of our issues. And so we want to begin to embrace a much higher way of being on the planet at this time in human history. And the attorney Benjamin Crump is going to be with us at this moment. There.
He didn't send a request. He just don't tell him to end it up.
So we just invited him in, and he's connecting right this moment. Brother Beckwith.
Reverend, how you doing?
These are very interesting times we're living in.
Yes,
and I really appreciate you at the last moment being able to jump on this IG Live for the moments that you do have, because what I understand, you're about to go with the family.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Michael Beckwith. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your advice, your counsel to so many. I know Cameron Mitchell and I always seek your counsel. And right now for George Floyd's family, please keep them in prayer as we reclaim his body, even as we're speaking from the medical examiner. to have Dr. Michael Biden, a noted forensic pathologist from the state of New York, who's going to do the independent autopsy on behalf of the family, because they think it was not third-degree murder. What we saw was first-degree murder, and we don't want him to be sentenced and then the judge give him 5 or 10 years. We want first-degree murder, so there'll be a minimum knowing how long he's going to serve. But we are thankful to God always for every step towards justice.
Absolutely. Now, will there be a what do you call it? What kind of a chamber is called in order to have him convicted?
A grand jury?
Grand jury, yes.
Yeah, they have a grand jury that hopefully will expand the charges. We don't think they cannot uncharge him at this point based on the probable cause that existed that we all saw, Reverend Beckwith. I mean, quite literally, when you think about what we witnessed a man who was face down, right, and handcuffs, right, and a police officer who has been trained and supposed to be able to de-escalate situations, kept his knee on his neck for not 1 minute, not 2 minutes, not 3 minutes, not 4 minutes, not 5 minutes, not 6 minutes, not 7 minutes, 8 minutes, over 8 minutes. And I always keep doing that for dramatic effect, for people to literally think about how George Floyd spent his last minutes on this earth gasping for breath. I mean, calling for his mother, saying that I'm gone, and then just pitifully urinating on himself because the police offer him no humanity. And so we have to give humanity to George Floyd collectively.
Absolutely. Again, we heard another black man say, "I can't breathe," again, and be killed. And you know, many African Americans are feeling the scar tissue of, in our DNA, of public lynching that used to happen, that when that was legal. And here we see a law enforcement individual that's to protect and to serve, as you indicated, sitting on top of a man that was handcuffed and was not resisting anything, murdered in front of our eyes. It reminds us of those public lynchings. Particularly some of the older people remember that. And here we are again. So America is crying out for justice, and America is crying out for a spiritual healing. And what I want to emphasize is that this is not just an African-American issue. This is all of our issue. This is America's issue. This is the world's issue. For wherever there is oppression or bigotry or racism, it affects us all. And so I'm hoping that not just African Americans are rising up, but that all of us, all citizens, are lifting up their voice and saying, this cannot be tolerated. I mean, from what I understand, and you can corroborate this, the particular officer had so many infractions in his particular file before this even happened. Now, you and I both know that if someone is harassed on a job, there's zero tolerance. But here we have police officers that have infraction after infraction after infraction after infraction, still on the job.
Yes, sir. And Derek Chauvin, the officer, had 18 allegations against him of excessive force, the majority against African Americans. And then on top of that, Reverend, he had 3 of them where lawsuits were filed, and one of the lawsuits were settled. So he had, I believe, a pattern and practice of using excessive illegal force against certain people. But I did want to make this point. It's really because of the people using their voices that we even got this arrest today.
Yes.
We cannot take for granted, especially with the precedents of Eric Gardner, that just because we see stuff that people are going to do the right thing. No, it has to be, we see it, we have to become emotional about it, and we have to act on it. We have to act on doing the right thing. And I want our white brothers and sisters to join us in the outrage, because as Ella Baker said, until We have white mothers as outraged as black mothers when they kill little black boys as they would be if they kill little white boys. Then we won't have equality in America. And what this really is about, when you think about the protesters out there and the fact that they started using tear gas and they started using the rubber bullets and they started arresting them and calling in the National Guard because these black people were exercising their First Amendment rights, and that's opposed to the Michigan State House where the majority of these white militia were coming with guns, assault weapons. Nobody called the National Guard. Nobody threw tear gas. It represents there's two justice systems in America, one for black America and one for white America. But until we have equal justice for the United States of America, we won't live up to the Constitution.
Absolutely. Now, I know you're about to be with the family at this moment. I don't want to, take too much of your time. I just want to thank you for jumping in and giving us your perspective. And any last words you want to say to us before you go? What should people be about?
It's very simple, Pastor. I often tell people we just have to do what's right. Dr. King said the coward asked the question, is it safe? He said expediency asked the question, is it politically correct? He said, oh, vanity comes along, asked the question, is it popular? But he said conscience comes along and asks the question, is it right? And he concluded there comes a time when one must take a position that's neither popular nor politically correct or not even safe, but one must take a position because their conscience tells them it is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do to stand up for George Floyd. It is the right thing to do to stand up for our children. It's the right thing to do to stand up for all God's children.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you for the good work you're doing. You're on the forefront on so many powerful cases. Absolutely appreciate you. And now you know I got you in prayer because you're doing a mighty work.
Thank you. We need prayer. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you. That was Attorney Benjamin Crump, and he's on his way to be with the family right now to be with the body and to have the real autopsy to see exactly what happened, even though we know what happened. So for those of you who followed the Ahmaud Arbery case, where you saw two white supremacists track down a jogger and shoot him, and you follow this particular case, America is screaming for a healing. And perhaps these negative incidences will be a part of the impetus for all of us to do what we can do to make changes and to begin to articulate a different justice system and a different world we want to live in. This is my hope. I know that the universe is progressive. I know that life wins, and perhaps something as egregious as what we have witnessed over the last couple of weeks with Ahmaud Arbery and Mr. George Floyd, this might be an impetus for great change. We're going to talk to Ryan Bathay. Let me see if she's available at this particular moment. Hold on one second. We're going to see if she's available in the queue at this moment. So if you don't remember who she is, she starred in numerous TV shows and films. She plays Erin Montgomery in BET's First Wives Club, the TV show. She's starring in a new upcoming movie, Sylvia's Love. Her husband is Sterling K. Brown. They're a powerful couple raising two children, two African-American boys, obviously. So I want to get her perspective about the times in which we are living. From her perspective as an individual that practices spiritually, an individual that's raising two young men, a woman, and we'll continue this dialogue. If you're just tuning in, normally the IGs start at 1 p.m. Pacific time, but because the state of affairs is happening in America right now, I thought it best to shift the perspective for a moment and to deal with what's current right now and to provide some perspective on it. We heard Attorney Benjamin Crump, who's with the family of George Floyd. And he's the attorney on this particular case. We're going to be talking to Ryan Bathay, who I've just read you her bio. And we're going to be talking with Reverend Kevin, who's on the forefront of many issues that deal with civil rights. He's the spiritual leader of the Unity community in Sacramento, which is also a part of the Agape community. He's an affiliate, very articulate young man rising up in the spiritual stature. Just don't go away. While we're waiting for Ryan, let your friends know about the new time of this particular IG, because many people are going to tune in at 1, but we're on early, as you can see. So take a moment and just let your friends know that we're going live, that we're live now. We just had Benjamin Crump, and then we're going to have Ryan and then Reverend Kevin. I think we're texting Ryan now to make sure that she's available. And so just to continue until we get her, America is crying out for a spiritual healing. Now, why do I say that? Because laws can be enacted, and we need great laws, obviously. There used to be a time where black men could be lynched. There was the Jim Crow era, segregation, slavery. And with all of these particular institutions of segregation and racism, eventually laws were changed so that there was an ending of slavery, there was an ending of Jim Crow, there was an ending of lynching. There's still a continuation of law enforcement abusing their power on people of color and even poor people. So there are laws against that, but there's an underlying narrative that needs to be shifted. And that narrative is that there are superior and inferior people, superior and inferior races. That narrative must be etched out of the soul of America. And that is why we're calling it a soul cleansing or a spiritual healing that ultimately must happen. From the time an individual is born, little babies aren't born racist. They're not born bigots. They're not born haters. That's something that's ingrained within them. That's something that's imprinted, something that they learn. So there must be a healing psychically, emotionally, spiritually of our country and our world so that that imprint begins to fade away. And so we're going to bring on Ryan at this moment. I gave you her bio, and you may recognize her from her reoccurring role in the BET First Wives Club. Ryan, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, we're having to rise above the turbulence that's happening at this time in human history, whether it's Ahmaud Arbery, or today we're dealing with George Floyd, and then you have the politicizing of COVID-19 that's happening across the board. So there's so much up at this time in human history that we have to deal with. And so I wanted you to be on today as we're dealing with this George Floyd situation. You know, you're a mother, you're raising 2 kids, 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember my mother raising 3 boys and giving us the talk, you know, about how to survive in the world so we'd get home safely, how to deal with the police, how to report badge numbers, how to, you know, she wanted us to be safe. She wanted us to be active. And so with all this going on, what is your perspective on this? I know it's deep and it's varied and it's layered. Just start wherever you want to start.
Well, I think I'll start at the beginning. I remember when I was pregnant with Amari. So I have two kids, Andrew and Amari. And Amari, they're 4 years apart. And when I was pregnant with Amari, I was having a really tough time because I was like, I don't know how to have two little black boys. And I have one is scary enough. My black husband is scared, but now I have another one. And I was like, I remember having a lot of conversation. It was a journey for me, which was like, it brought up, and when you're pregnant, it's just a lot of stuff is happening. You're downloading a lot of things. And I really had to sit in that and be with that and be with the fact that I was very much afraid of it because I had already done it once and I didn't want to have to do it again. Because for me, my question is always, when does my little boy start being a man to people outside of this home,
Yeah.
outside of our community? And that's a question I still wrestle with, because every day he gets a little bit taller. They both do. That's kind of how kids have this way
Right.
of continuing to grow.
Right.
And I often think about that. And I think for us, for me and for Sterling, we've been very mindful about the communities that we've put them in terms of school. They go to a public school because I felt like I had a better shot with women, with teachers of color who actually lived and walked a certain walk themselves, in terms of being able to have conversations with them and them not seeing my children as problems.
Yes.
So we've tried to be mindful about that. The community that we live in, I did not, where I grew up on the East Coast, I grew up in Connecticut, and there weren't any predominantly Black communities that were where you could own a home, et cetera, like they do in LA. LA is a really great example of that. And not that everybody has to own their home, but for our situation, I felt like being mindful of raising them in the community where we're raising them, where there was just at least a little bit of, I don't want to use the word safety because we're always safe. You taught me that because we were talking about football at one point. So we're always safe, right? They're always safe. They're always protected, safe. We walk, we live in a friendly universe. But I also feel like I had to make, as a mother, mindful choices to reflect that friendliness at every turn that I could.
Right. And obviously, at a certain point, they say that by the time a child is like 7 or 8 years old, they already psychically know that there's a level of racism or bigotry that they're dealing with. They may not know what it is, they may not know what to call it, but they know if they walk into a room, they psychically feel that they are the other. They're not the same. And they begin to develop like psychic antibodies on how to deal with that. So as an African American mother, you have to shower with so much love and the awareness that you just said that they are safe, live in a friendly universe. You have to we have to kind of overcompensate where other people don't necessarily have to overcompensate.
I mean, the word in our house, or the hashtag in our house, is Black Boy Joy.
Black boy joy?
Black boy joy. Man, in this house, there's battle fights and fun and lots of hugs and kisses and game nights and laughter, and so much. We try to infuse their day to day with so much joy, and this is a violence-free home as much as possible, and that's difficult because I am an African American mother, and it's interesting from a spiritual perspective, the things that sort of jump out, right? Like things that jump out of my mouth that I'm like,
Right.
Look what I did, and it's just, I have to be, if I'm not conscious, things that I just have been raised with will just jump out of my mouth. And listen, it's effective. Right. Andrew said the other day he was watching some cartoon, and it was these tanks that would not stop. They were like these Terminator tanks. And it was the Airbender. So it was and he said, you know what, man, they're like black mamas, but the bad kind.
Oh, wow. I'm going to ask you something. You recently posted something on your Facebook,
I did.
or was it Facebook or Instagram, regarding the issues that are going on now. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Uh,
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
I
yes.
think it's a good perspective.
The perspective about the article that I read about 10 years ago, where they did the FBI was tracking white supremacist groups,
Right.
and they had infiltrated them, because that's actually what one of the ways that they research them is to infiltrate them. And what they realized was that, then this was 10 years ago,
Right.
the plan from the white supremacist groups was to infiltrate the police departments and the military, police departments throughout the country, and the military. And what we were talking about was just how you don't need a lot of people to, and if two or three people, it's biblical. If two or three people go into one police department with the same vision, even if that is a vision of darkness, they can do a great deal of damage if everyone else is unaware, if
Absolutely.
everyone else is not holding a space of, yes, we are the police, but we are a peacekeeping force.
Right. Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And that appears to what happens with obviously Floyd George. I mean, the man that had his knee on his neck had no remorse.
None.
Floyd, no remorse at all. He just stared blankly as people were screaming at him to get the knee off of his neck. He had no remorse. It was like this was his intention, you know.
He was so clear that it was his right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I have a right to do this.
Yes.
And so this is why we're talking about, we need a spiritual healing on so many levels. There's obviously the legalistic, practical level. And then there's the level of shifting the narrative about superiority and inferiority that people are still imprinted with. And so I wanted you to just be on, because I know you're trying to raise black boy joy. I saw some people responding to that on the thread. Black boy joy, compensating for what they're going to have to face when they go out. So they have enough spaciousness within them that there's a great degree of self-love and appreciation, regardless of what they're going to face. I'm so appreciative for Alice Geneva Beckwith, my mother, who embraced us and gave us a foundation of self-love and appreciation, because we did run into all of that. I mean, that was just a part of, when I went to an integrated junior high school, I was told by my teacher, and we had to do autobiographies. And I said I was going to, go to USC and do this, that. And she marked my paper down and said I was dreaming too high. There's no way I was going to go to USC. So ultimately, I went to Morehouse and then transferred to USC. But we're faced with that on a regular basis. And so the narrative needs to shift, which is why we're saying America and the world needs a spiritual healing that shifts the narrative and the laws. Like the police, as I was talking to Benjamin Crump earlier, the person that was just arrested for killing him had 18 infractions in his file. Yeah. After one or two, he should have been fired.
Absolutely.
I mean, if someone goes into a workplace and abuses somebody or harasses somebody, they're fired immediately these days. So you can have a police officer that's supposed to protect and to serve, have 18 infractions, and he's still on the force? No, there's some laws that need to be changed.
Some laws that need to be changed, some mentalities that need to be changed. And, people are doing everything that they can to, when you take away people's voice, they will find a way to speak regardless, right. And if we take a knee and you call us SOBs, and we march down the street and you call us, say we're playing the race card. I mean, the things that they say about quote unquote civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton, who has done nothing but try to diffuse every single situation. They call them race peddlers. At every turn, there's a derogatory term for everything that people have done to try and bring light and awareness to these issues. And so what's happening now is like you've pushed people to the point where you've taken away everything. They're going to speak. That's what human beings are going to do. They're going to speak. They're going to talk with whatever tools they have. Right. And so I think you're absolutely, right in the sense that if we can continue to raise the consciousness, then we can help everyone have that voice even when the tools are being taken away from them, and we can give them higher and higher tools that they may not see right now, you know, because right now you see this tool, you see this, I'm gonna throw this, I'm gonna burn that, because those are very tactile tools, but there are other tools that we have at our disposal. And I think that that's what our job is as well, you know, is to constantly raise that vibration in the midst of this, you know.
Absolutely.
And I'm completely compassionate as well, because, you know, we've all been at that point of just that fire, that anger that causes us to, I don't even want to use the term lash out, but we want direct action.
Right. Particularly when justice has not been served for a long period of time in so many cases, in which we see the abuse of power of law enforcement, and then nothing happens, then there has to be some type of explosion at some point.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a natural human reaction. But now, after that, after this dies down, there must be boots on the ground and consciousness in the air to make a difference. There has to be, you know, things that we can begin to do once, you know, the furor is over, you know.
Yes.
And this is what we're about. This is what we're about. And I appreciate you being on with me today. I know that Sterling's nephew passed over, and he's at the funeral of his nephew. So we give tremendous prayers for you and Sterling and his sister and the whole family as they're going through that particular situation. And, you know, are you coming back for another season of First Wives Club?
That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, at another time, in a few weeks, we'll have a different conversation. I know you're involved with a new movie coming out. I know there's a lot of stuff you're doing, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, we just wanted to deal with the current events.
Absolutely.
And our perspective on it. So thank you for being with us. Any parting words?
I just want you to know that Alice is my hero. She always has been. She always will be.
My mother?
Yes, absolutely. I remember sitting in Agape, and I would watch her, and I would be like, that's the path. That's who, if there's a hero, that's who I wanna be. And then, of course, when I had a son, I was like, oh, well, be careful what you wish for. And then I had another one, and I was like, be really careful what you wish for.
Alice?
So, but she is. And I think about my two sons, and I often ask, I often have conversations and say, Alice, if you could just give me a little guidance right now. So
Alice was no joke, okay?
Oh, I know.
She was short of stature, but very powerful. She loved you to the nth degree, but she would tell you the truth about yourself and get you in order. And I sometimes cringe at what me and my brothers put her through growing up.
I want to hear those stories too, but also for another time. But,
she corralled us, and of course, my dad was no joke. So all she had to say was, when your dad gets home, and we straightened right up. We didn't want to deal with Frank Beckwith Jr. You know. But what I appreciate about them both was they did give us a foundation of unconditional love. And you could tell that they loved us whether we did wrong or whether we did right. There was no difference in the love. There may have been difference in the punishment, but there was no withholding of love. And so I love them both for being able to hold that space. And I hold you and Sterling in prayer that you're obviously doing the same thing for your kids. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are tuning into Agape every Sunday and using this as something you guys can lean on.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll keep talking. And, for everyone out there, just whatever you're feeling, these emotions, they are lessons. So just listen to them. Listen to them.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Thank you,
Ryan. Ryan,
love you guys. Bye.
Hey, we're going to go to Iyanla Vanzant is tuning in. We're going to talk to Iyanla for a moment and then go to Reverend Kevin Ross. Is Iyanla still with us? We're going to invite her. And because she's definitely a voice of healing and a powerful voice that many people lean into. So we're inviting my sister, Iyanla Vanzant, to connect with us. Iyanla Vanzant, how are you, sis?
I'm good. Ooh, I was frantic. I was like, oh, technology. What did I do?
I know that's what I call the Corona bonus. Everybody has grown in technology in a very
Listen.
short period of time.
Yeah, I've been broadcasting on 2 places at the same time.
Right. Well, I'm glad you joined me. I called you to come in and give a little perspective, a little healing perspective, because I'm calling today, you know, America's crying out for a spiritual healing.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, in George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. There's so much abuse of power and force and racism that's being revealed. I mean, not that it's just rising now.
That's it.
It's been here, but now the transparency about what we've been dealing with for so long is showing up. So I wanted you to come on, just share a perspective. You know?
Well, yesterday I was live on Facebook for 9 hours.
Wow.
Because we got to get it, Michael.
Yeah.
We got to get it. Let me say this first so that we have a clear understanding. And some people, this will be over your head, and that's okay.
Planting seeds.
We owe George Floyd a debt of gratitude.
Yes.
That he sacrificed his life at this time so that this could be brought to the surface.
Yes.
We didn't get it with Trayvon. We didn't get it with Philander. We didn't get it with Tamir Rice. We didn't get it with John Crawford. Just 2 months ago, Stephen Taylor, with a mental illness, shot in the Walmart till the people had to tell the police, stop shooting him. We didn't even hear that one. We didn't get it with Atiana Jefferson, shot in her home playing video games with her nephew.
Right.
We didn't get it with Breonna Taylor. Oh, we got it now.
Yes.
So we owe him a debt of gratitude for his sacrifice, because this is what's happening. We've got 5 heavenly energies, you can call them planets if you want to, going in retrograde.
Come on.
And what those planets are saying is, you cannot sweep it under the rug anymore.
Right.
Corona came to stop us in our tracks. The coronavirus, in addition to a physical energy, has a spiritual energy.
Yes.
And people who've had it will describe it as dark. They will describe it as an energy. It came to stop us in our tracks because we cannot move forward until we deal with what's been swept under the rug. White male domination.
Yes.
White male superiority. White males who think they can get away with anything and everything. Have we not seen it? I'm not talking political party. I'm not talking red, white, left. I'm talking energetically.
Yes.
We cannot sweep racism under the carpet anymore. We cannot sweep economic greed and disparity under the carpet anymore. We are all being held accountable, personally, individually, and universally. We talk about the disparity in the African American community as it relates to economics, healthcare, and even deaths in the corona. We are also being held accountable for how we handle our lives, what we do, what we say, how we do it. We cannot sweep it under the carpet anymore. And let me tell you, keep your mask on, because we're getting ready to get beat like we stole something. You know why? We haven't paid attention. We've been home. The universe said, come home. And people are itching to get out.
Right.
We're impatient. We're impulsive.
Right.
And we're not paying attention.
Right.
So George Floyd, in his loving sacrifice, has brought this thing to a head where black and white, rich and poor, left and right are saying, wait a minute, hold up. It's been here, but we refuse to see it. No more. We're being held accountable. Absolutely. We're being held accountable.
Yeah. And that's what the word apocalypse means. It means the lifting of the veil. that
That's
the
right.
veil is lifted, you can see what's trying to emerge. You can see the cataclysm of what's happening, and then some people don't see anything at all. They're just,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're just ignorant. But we're in an apocalyptic moment where the
That's
veil
right.
is lifted, and you actually see what people have been dealing with for years.
That's
and
right.
you're saying you cannot hide it under the rug. They tried to hide it with Ahmaud Arbery, you know.
That's right.
But that began the snowball effect that you're talking about. You know,
Yes.
when
Yes.
two white supremacists kill a jogger for nothing,
For nothing.
you know, that ratcheted up the energy a little bit. And
But
now
they
you
hit
have
it. They hit it.
Yeah,
Don't forget they hit it for
they
2
hit
months.
it for a long time.
That's right.
And the individuals weren't even arrested for months.
That's right.
But
So here's the other piece, Michael, for our individual selves.
Yes.
And again, I know this is difficult for some people.
Plant the seeds, Iyanla. Plant the seeds.
Okay. We have to do the ancestral work because we have a cellular memory. So a lot of the anger, the outrage, the fury, we've got to heal that, clear that from the cellular memory so that we can have a different approach today.
Yes.
You know, we marched for Trayvon for 5 months. We marched for Michael Brown for 3 months. Then we went back to watching Wheel of Fortune. Okay? But this corona thing has shut it all down.
Yes.
Everything we worship, everything we value, the entertainment and the athletes and everything. People used to live at home. They don't live at home anymore. They live in the club, in the bar, in the mall. But Corona says, stay your butt home. And what did we do the minute we had the opportunity? Run outside. Why? Because we don't know how to deal with the energetic of the cellular memory. So I've been telling people simple things, clear, ancestral, generational anger and rage so that we can see how to deal with it today. We can't deal with it today the way our ancestors did. We have to deal with it differently. Clear ancestral curses, ancestral enslavement, black and white.
Yes.
This is white folks' work too.
Absolutely.
It's not just our work.
Absolutely.
What we want to clear is the energy that'll make us think nothing's going to change.
Right.
Because that's what our ancestors thought.
Right.
But we have to see it differently, do it differently. So just a simple, I'm clearing ancestral rage. I've been telling people how to cross their meridians. Inhale to the right, exhale to the left. I'm choosing to clear generational trauma. I'm clearing generational trauma now. Back to center. I'm choosing to clear generational rage. I'm clearing generational rage now. Back to center. I'm choosing to clear generational oppression. I'm clearing generational oppression now. Back to center. Our ancestors didn't have the technology. We have the technology. It's called intentionality.
Yes.
It's called speak the word.
Yes.
It's called hold the thought.
Yes.
It's called clear the energy.
Yes.
And the planets that are retrograde are supporting us in our healing. And let me just say this one final thing. Don't get tricked into believing what you see with your eyes, because people are they tearing up their neighborhood? Why are they rioting and looting? The Boston Tea Party, which was white folks rebelling against oppression, became a historical event. But black people rebelling against oppression is called rioting and looting. Come on now, somebody.
Right. Well, that's the status quo. That's the status quo, basically shaping the narrative.
That's right.
And we have to take our own narrative and have to
That's
take
right.
it what it really is. Yeah.
And so we're in one sense, yes, I have outrage, but it's my outrage. It's not my grandmother's outrage, okay? It's my outrage today. And so I get to mold that and shape that into something more productive. Clear those ancestral things. Oh, just open your mouth and claim your freedom from historical patterns of thought, belief, and behavior that keep us enslaved to things we can't even see.
Right.
Clear that. And all of this anger and rage toward white folk, and let's clear that. Otherwise, we're not going to get the messages that we need to move forward collectively to change this.
Absolutely. Those messages are coming directly from spirit, directly from your soul, but you have to have no static on the line.
No static
in order
on
to
those.
catch it and articulate it and live it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
I want to embrace you. I love you so much. And I just want to let people know that what Iyanla is talking about is real spiritual, intentional work. It's not foo-foo. It's not frivolous. It's real inner work that allows you to change your consciousness.
That's it.
But you see the possibilities within yourself and in the world, and you walk in that direction intentionally.
Yeah.
She's talking.
And you know what, Michael? Even if we can't see the possibility, because right now we're looking. So they've arrested the person and we want to clap. I said, no, don't clap. Take the spiritual victory and go into gratitude.
Yeah.
Not celebration that you got what you wanted. That's a low vibration. It's a spiritual victory that something's being healed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
so
just the
go
beginning.
into gratitude.
Just the beginning.
Yes, just the beginning. This is the long haul.
Yeah.
This is not a sprint, because we are clearing generations of imbalance and injustice and arrogance. Okay. So even in your own personal life, this is what I'm saying. Hear me. In your own personal life, who do you feel has a knee on your neck? Is it your boss, your coworker, your supervisor, your partner, your mama?
Or life
Who
itself.
do you, okay, life itself. Clear that.
Yes.
And then, whose neck do you have your knee on? Who are you holding in a place trying to get them to do what you want them to do? Is it your child, your partner, your friends, okay? This is where we got to look. Whose neck is your knee on?
Yes.
Maybe your knee is on your own neck.
Yes.
With limited thoughts and beliefs and perceptions of reality. This is what we have to clear so that there's no static. So when the spirit speaks and says, pull your money out of the economy for the next 3 days, you don't go into hysteria running to buy toilet paper.
Well, you know what? We didn't come here to be consumers. We came here to
No.
be creators.
That's right.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you know,
this is the level of work, and it's for me, and I'm sure for you, it's exciting. You know what I mean?
well, you know what?
I realize
as I've
that.
been saying, this is our time.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
everything is fluxed up, which means everything is malleable right now.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we can make great changes if
Yes,
we
right.
do heal our wounds
Yes.
and then catch a larger vision and walk in that direction.
That's right.
Everything, we don't want someone else to
Yes.
actually create our agenda for us.
No.
We
no.
want to have our own agenda and our own narrative, and that's why we have to do the work you just described.
And the thing is that we've got it. See, we have become so externally validated. You know, the eyes, the nails, the hair, the butt, the lips, the TV, the job, the titles, the fame, the fortune. But Corona said, stay home.
And we're all
Go
equal.
in. Right. So we have to do the individual work so that we can be purposeful, valuable, meaningful in the external work. Do your work. Whose neck do you have your knee on? How do you have your knee on your own neck? And whose neck is on whose knee is on your neck? And what are you thinking and feeling about that? Clear it up. Clear it up.
This is beautiful. Before you go, I know I recently did an interview with you on your program that's going to come on OWN. Tell the people about that so they can be aware of
We're doing a whole show. It's called Fear Not. It airs on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Nobody's watching it.
Saturday. What date? What's the date?
It's every Saturday. Your show airs next week. This week I have Dr. Steve Perry. But where I'm giving information and we're talking about how to move out of the fear, because fear is a very low vibration and it makes you susceptible not only to the virus, the coronavirus, but to everything else. So the show is called Fear Not, 9 p.m. on OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and you're going to get some information and exercises about how to not live, so you don't take fear out of the virus as we go back into the world.
Absolutely. Every Saturday, 9 o'clock.
On the Oprah Winfrey Network. You know, it's different in every place. So
Right.
Look in your area and see what the Oprah Winfrey Network is, or look at it on the OWN app. You can do
Right.
it there too.
Right. Fear
I
not.
love you, Michael
Iyanla,
Bernard Beckwith.
I love you, Iyanla Vanzant, and thank you for tuning in. Absolutely appreciate your time.
Deep
It's
bow.
valuable. We have a lot of activities going on, so thank you for stopping and being with us.
On anytime. Deep
Beautiful.
bow, everybody. Deep bow.
God bless you. So obviously that was Iyanla Vanzant. We're going to complete our moment of dialogue with the Reverend Kevin Ross. Kevin Ross is the spiritual director of the Unity Center in Sacramento. And we're going to take a few minutes with him and mine his perspective. The Reverend Kevin Ross I've known since he was a teenager, and he's now the spiritual director of the Unity Spiritual Center right there in Sacramento. And Reverend Kevin, how are you, brother?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Outstanding. Have you been tuning in to the few guests I've had on today?
I am, and I'm just loving it. It's absolutely what I need today after a real dark night, you know, and that the whole country has been feeling. So I'm very grateful that you have chosen to host this and invited me to be a part.
Right. When you talk about the dark night, are we talking your personal dark night?
Personally, I've been carrying some of the energetic. It's been building up, you know, and I didn't know exactly what it was, exactly where it all was coming from, but I was feeling that this eruption was occurring because I could feel it within myself. I'm empathic, and so I've been taking it on. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was saying that if we don't see our white brothers and sisters begin to talk to each other about structural and institutionalized racism and the impact that it has on their brown, black, and brothers and sisters of color. If they don't begin to have those conversations, those of us who are fully willing, open, and ready and engaged in having those conversations with them will stop talking. And then those individuals who don't care to talk will start taking matters into their own hands. And I said that to my wife the other day as I was just holding this energy around George Floyd. And to just tag into what Iyanla said a minute ago, I want to honor all of the untimely ancestors created by racialized violence. This day is, they share in this day, in this moment, those that were created as ancestors by racialized violence. I just want to honor them in this space, you know, and maybe that's what's been bubbling up for me. So it's not only a dark night, you know, personally, it was a dark night for us. If you were paying attention, you were tapped into, you know, the work of the patriots that were in rebellion in Minneapolis, who were spitting out and rejecting, summarily rejecting this type of violence. That this was not a riot. This was a rebellion. This is the language of the unheard and the unseen, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has taught us. And so being a witness to that, being a witness and party to that last night, I was spiritually there with them. I was spiritually there with them.
Absolutely. I saw what you posted, and I'm in concert with that, because as I was sharing earlier with one of the guests, this is not a black issue. This is an American issue. This is a human issue. This is a world issue. For wherever there is racial superiority consciousness or racism or bigotry, it affects everyone. It doesn't just affect black people or brown people or yellow people. It affects us all. And everyone has to be in the conversation. You look at, historically, you look at when the hoses were put on Dr. King. You look at the March to Selma. You look at Emmett Till being murdered. There was an outrage that happened that jettisoned things forward, but that outrage was among every citizen, not just among a small group of citizens. So I'm thinking, as Iyanla was saying earlier, we may owe a debt to Brother George Floyd, because he may be, you know, particularly on the heels of Ahmaud Arbery, he might be the spark that allows real conversations to take place, real meaningful action, real meaningful change during this time in which things are very, very malleable. I appreciate what you posted, by the way.
Yeah, and I absolutely positively agree with that. And this is why they are the untimely ancestors created by racialized violence. And so we must honor them. We are picking up a mantle that they've sacrificed for greatly. And I do agree that it's necessary. It's past time for those of our white brothers and sisters who say they love us and embrace us as friends and beloveds. It's time for them to begin to shoulder their more than half of the sky in this conversation, because we've shouldered more than our half of the sky forever in this. And when you're naming those individuals in history who have stood on the front lines and sacrificed on behalf, you have to include yourself in that. You know, you and I have stood on the front lines, if you recall, forming a human chain.
I remember
before
between the police officers
yes, and white supremacists.
White supremacists.
Yes, in Sacramento. Don't forget that. And later arrested. So we have you and I have shared spaces where we have placed our bodies literally on the line for something that we believe in. What we're experiencing now for people of color, and it's something I want our white brothers and sisters to really understand, we are experiencing a double pandemic. That's what's happening in our experience, you know, because while we are working through the impacts and the disparities related to COVID-19, we also have to put our lives on the line to help dismantle racism, which we cannot do of ourselves. Up until now we can't. And so what I love about what you and Iyanla are saying about we need to do our work, we need to do our individualized work, and we need to not be afraid of the rage. Rage is a part of this, you know. We can't fix what we will not face. We can't heal what we will not hear. And so we're asking you to hear us and face race just as the rest of us are facing race every day. It's not something that I have the convenience of withdrawing from. It is just a part of who I am. You know?
No, you do not. You cannot hide.
Yeah, there's no hiding. There's no hiding all this.
You got too much. You have too much melanin. You cannot hide.
Yeah, and so my invitation, and if you want me, I'll share it for you. But this idea of the being willing to be at stake in this conversation, embrace the rage. All of us are feeling some kind of rage. Even my white brothers and sisters who responded greatly to the post on my Facebook page, responding greatly. They're feeling the rage. So let's go ahead and understand our rage. Where is that rage coming from? Where is that rage coming from? And then let's transmute our rage. Yeah. Let's transmute the rage into wage. Let's wage some peace. Let's dismantle the structures that are barriers to the building of the beloved community that many people who follow you and me say they align with. But this co-creating a world that works for all involves work, and it is not coming on
work and all. Work and all.
That's it.
You know, just to embrace what you just said,
yes.
Embrace all of us, not just segments of the population.
Yes.
But everyone has skin in the game. Absolutely.
Yeah. I should read this then, since it's kind of what's coming up. So this is what I shared on my Facebook page as a conversation starter with white brothers and sisters. And then I'll just have a thought about it. Dear white people, please talk to your people about the rampant, ruthless, and shameless killings of Black people before the Black people who are willing to talk about it to you stop talking. And those that don't care to talk start taking matters into their own hands. If you don't see this as a problem that white people need to talk to white people about, I don't understand what further evidence you require. Take up a new legacy of ownership, allyship, and advocacy and abolitionism by calling out your own wayward sons and daughters, sisters and brothers, cousins and nephews, students and mentees. You hold them accountable. You demand that they change. You demand that they obey the law. You demand that they live out the tenets of their professed faith. They are not listening to us. This is not a Black problem. These killings are problems created by whites and therefore must be solved by whites. I know how uncomfortable it must make some people feel to hear me speak this way, but I cannot continue to watch Black people be massacred senselessly in the streets and then risk their lives seeking justice only for whites to feel sorry but stay comfortable. It's time to have the talk with each other. Dear white people, please hear my heart. Your action or inaction is not merely for the benefit of Black people, but for the whole of humanity. Have the talk for what doing so does to end racism in our nation. Once and for all, you hold the key, signed Rev Kev, hashtag have the talk. And this,
Thank you for that.
yeah, and this post is really a part of my and it could be an Aloysius kind of Pollyannish vision. And that vision is that whites begin to catch a higher a connection to their ancestral lineage that were abolitionists. There were those that were of their lineage that were alongside those that were constructing these institutions. There were those that were always deconstructing it. In the instance of the Underground Railroad, you had your white abolitionists right there. So
Absolutely.
this abolitionist movement, there's an opportunity for whites to take off the cloak of shame and guilt and take on a cloak of pride as it relates to their abolitionist ancestry, take that up and abolish racism as their new purpose and mission, as only they can do.
Right.
And then we can be their allies.
Right.
We can be their allies.
I don't think that's Pollyanna-ish. That's real talk.
Yeah.
For individuals to go to their ancestral frequency of things that were done powerfully, that's real talk. And then you know what happens? Then you go to the place where you realize that African American history did not begin with slavery.
Correct.
And it's, we have another lineage and another heritage way beyond that. And then the white folks have a history way beyond that as well. We start to meet at a transcendent space where real healing takes place. No, I don't think that's Pollyannish. As a matter of fact, real change only happens when people begin to believe what normal people believe is impossible.
That's it.
That's when real change takes place. Matter of fact, if you look at the word impossible, it spells I'm possible.
I'm possible.
That's what it spells.
I'm possible. You're absolutely right. So I appreciate that correction of perspective. I want to, in my own mind, in my own imagination, that's what I see happening. That's when we're talking about the beloved community and co-creating a world. I see our white brothers and sisters taking the lead of their positive ancestry and being transformative with that today. And that's something they can align with and do so from a place of their true desire, no longer needing to be afraid to enter, no longer need to be ashamed and operating out of what is commonly referred to as white guilt. That's not necessary. What about operating from this place of love? Dr. King says we only need a heart full of love and a soul generated by grace.
Generated by grace.
Absolutely.
And you know what happens?
Yeah.
What happens is what's happening in your community and what's happening at Agape. After a while, we stop identifying each other by race at all.
That's it.
We enter into the content of our character.
That's
as
it.
Dr. King described.
That's it.
We enter into people that are on the path, people that are seeking to be growth-centric and discover their gifts and share them. And that's the beloved community. That's where we don't deny our particular heritage. We love it and embrace it. But we are aware that our spiritual heritage, we're one with that luminous, brilliant light that we all are.
That's it.
But we have to begin where we are.
That's it.
Begin where we are. And
so, if we broaden our neighborhood of concern and start with having the talk. See, as you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
Blacks have to have the talk with their sons and daughters.
Absolutely.
Let our white counterparts, brothers and sisters, begin to have the talk. Okay,
Absolutely.
you know, they're at the Joneses' house. You know how Kevin and David and your black brothers and sisters, your friends that belong, because now we belong to each other. So when we belong to each other, then our way of being, our level of ownership and at stakeness with each other is different. So I'm going to have the talk with my white kids about, hey, listen, you know, your brother Kevin that you hang out with, you know, just because of his color, he can be very at risk. Would you be willing to interrupt any kind of racial slurs or any kind of racial bullying that might be going on around him and be a disruption to that? Have the talk at home so that we start seeing some more gladiators of peace and justice showing up out of your communities. And you know, this is what it's about for me. And I'm glad to be playing in the soup with you at this time. I think we were sent here for this, such a time as this.
Absolutely. It's all culminated. We've known each other for years. I knew you as a teenager, and you've simply continued to evolve and progress, but your core has stayed the same. You want to birth and be an instrument of birthing the beloved community. I applaud you for that. I thank you for tuning in today, because I called everyone at the last moment because I thought I needed to change the IG Live perspective today because of the current events. And so you and Ryan and Iyanla and Ben Crump said yes and jumped on without hardly any notice. So I just want to say thank you for being ready. Thank you for your articulation. Thank you for you. And to give all your people up there in Sacramento and your spiritual community, give them my love and appreciation.
Indeed, we love you, and we thank you for all that you're doing, and we're happy to be aligned with Agape International Spiritual Center. We're now Unity of Sacramento International Spiritual Center, and that's an honor. We're glad to be playing.
God bless
Peace.
you, Kev.
Namaste.
Give
Namaste.
your wife and kids my love, will you?
I will do that. We'll do that.
God bless you.
Peace. You got it.
So peace and riches blessings, everyone. That was a Reverend Kevin. And Sacramento, that Unity, a center in Sacramento, a spiritual community aligned with Agape. You've embraced Iyanla Vanzant, reminding us to heal our own ancestral wounds so that we can see clearly and get guidance without static on the line. You've heard Ryan Bathay and her perspective and letting us know that many white supremacists are integrating into the police department, but also what it takes to raise young black boys. And she's embracing black boy joy as a kind of a compensation for what she knows they'll be facing. Benjamin Crump, who's now with the family of George Floyd and participating in that whole legal activity that must take place for justice. So we'll continue to allow for George Floyd to be an impetus for conversation, an impetus for prayer, an impetus for action, an impetus for asking what we can do to help create a kind and just global society. You know what you need? Kind people, enlightened beings. And that's where your spiritual work comes into play. Looking forward to seeing you online Sunday at agapelive.com or our Facebook page. Looking forward to feeding you more information on my app, michaelbbeckwith.tv. You just subscribe to it, it's free. If you want to upgrade, you can, it's free. And go to that page and get it. And we'll continue to give offerings, continue to serve as a spiritual community, as an individual. You stay prayed up. Do not be pulled back into consumerism and materialism. Go into periods of self-examination, stillness, meditation, and discover what you're meant to be. Not what you should be by an external authority figure, but what are you meant to be by the presence that's never in absence. Have a bright day.